Hey guys, John Hansis coming to you from Crane Worldwide. I wanted to come to you with another part of the series that I've received a lot of questions, concerned comments about regarding freight. So this topic I'm going to cover your standard over-the-road freight, your LTL, your less than container load versus your full trailer load. But I want to break into the basics of how you get to that point in understanding. The first part of it is your class. Most of you have seen, if you have pricing agreements with different vendors, you might have an FAK rate lock for certain things, but your freight class is first and foremost in having that understanding to determine that. That class will determine the tariffs you are charged in order for that freight. So depending on the kind of freight you have, it will put it into a category. The main underlining part I want to put onto you is understanding of that freight class. The class is determined by the density, which is essentially the amount of space your shipment takes up in respect to its weight. So the way to get that number is basically you take your length, width, and height dimensions, multiply that out, divide that by 1728. The 1728 is basically the amount of cubic inches there are to a cubic foot. Your 12 inch by 12 inch by 12 inch. So measure out and get that determination, your length, width, and height, divide that by 1728. Now what that number is, you're going to divide the weight of your shipment by that number, and that will basically give you your pounds per cubic foot, or that density that you're going to see. Your freight classifications, there's basically 18 of them that will range from a class 50 up to a class 500. And the higher you go, the more expensive it is to ship that item, because there's 4 characteristics that the NMFC, which is your National Motor Freight Classification, will base those by. And you're basically looking at your density, your stowability, your handling, and your liability. So those 4 classes are going to determine, and how you're looking at that shipment and how you're charged for that shipment. A big thing is also, when discussing with your carrier or discussing with your logistics staff, make sure you accurately determine the weight. Many times I have seen customers or clients, or even when I was on the other side in the operations field, someone will call up and say, oh, I have this pallet, it's this weight, I need it gone from here to here, standard. Trucking company shows up to find out that at the midway point, these things get weighed all the time if they're cross-docking or so forth, and that 500-pound shipment was actually 1,100 pounds. Now you're going to get charged accordingly based on that. So knowing your weight when you start that communication with your carrier is very important, because you do not want to see a reweigh charge. You do not want to see situations where you get labeled for notoriously doing something like that, because that will also come back to play. So knowing the weight determination before you call your carrier, knowing the background history of the freight classification for you is going to be a big factor, because it will allow you to look at your quote and really break it down to understanding where the numbers are, or if the numbers aren't correct, you can go back to that carrier and kind of question from there. Once you have all that in place, your next part is going to be your LTL versus your LTL. Basically, if you have your LTL is your less than container load, whether you have, whatever that shipment is not going to take up a full truck. It's got 2 pallets, 6 pallets, 7 pallets, versus like an entire 20 pallet or 22 for a full trailer. So some of that will be determined on your pricing. Sometimes it's easy if you have a shipping lane that carrier has that's kind of in their a regular spot for them, that they're coming back from another shipment. You might be able to get a really cheap rate. That's why you might see big variances in the freight pricing for some of these larger carriers, because it might be a regular lane for them, so it's easy to throw your shipment on there. So it's just something to keep in mind. Your full trailer load is basically, no matter what's happening, what you're putting in that trailer, you do not want to see cross-docked, you do not want to see entering another warehouse and being pulled off for any reason, or for sometimes your medical, your FDA, your pharmaceutical, you don't want to chance any contamination of anything else coming into that container, touching that container, or being that possibility to contaminate. So you're requesting that full trailer from A to B. The best thing about a full trailer load is it's also less touches. So you're not going to see a cross-docking where those pallets are coming on and off of fork trucks, where you're risking the potential of more damage or risk of contamination there. So depending on the industry as well, is something else to keep in mind of whether or not you want to do an LTL or an FTL shipment. Another factor to keep in mind, and also to be very communicative with your, whoever you may be using, is also the accessibility of the loading docks. Many loading docks can accommodate a 53-foot trailer. Some cannot. Some you need a lift gate. So all of these things are going to play a factor in the pricing that you're doing. So the more you can communicate with your carrier and knowing those exact details, I kind of use an Excel sheet that I give to a potential client saying, these are the parameters I need to know. Knowing all these, it's very easy for me to provide you a quote. So it's something to keep in mind that if last minute a truck shows up and they can't accommodate that trailer, or now all of a sudden you need a lift gate, it now means that you have lost time to get that trailer back to a dock. They got to reconfigure it and send it back. So it's something to keep in mind as well on there. Wanted to just come with you a quick video on that. Any further questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me at any point. I'd be happy to discuss them, but I wanted to go over these particular topics because I've received a lot of questions and comments about it. So thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you on the next one.